Welcome to Stories Reimagined, where every story finds new life. Aru had always been the kind of man people noticed without knowing why. Tall, calm, almost unfairly beautiful in a way that didn't beg for attention, sharp eyes softened by kindness, lips that looked like they remembered smiles longer than they remembered pain. He moved through Chiang Mai like someone who belonged everywhere and nowhere at once. That was how Krit first noticed him. The truth was, Aru noticed Krit first too. Not because Krit was overwhelming, but because he wasn't. In a room full of noise, Krit felt like quiet. He didn't stare. He didn't rush. When their eyes met, Krit smiled as if he already knew Aru would look away first, and when Aru did, he felt oddly seen. Arun's chest warmed, not fluttered. This feels easy, he thought. Krit, on the other hand, felt something sharper. When Aru laughed softly at something he said, Krit's breath caught. It wasn't desire, not yet, but intention. Aru carried himself like someone fragile only in the places that mattered, and Krit felt a sudden, almost protective pull. I could take care of him, Krit realized. And I want to. Krit approached gently, not with hunger, but with care. They met in a quiet cafe tucked between temples and narrow streets, where rain softened the air and conversation stayed low. With Krit, everything was slow, predictable in the best way. When they kissed for the first time, it was tender lips meeting briefly, almost shy. Krit's hand stayed at Arun's waist, steady. Aru felt warmth, reassurance, comfort, safety. Their meetings became a rhythm. Sometimes planned, often accidental. They'd run into each other at the same street vendor, Krit always pretending to be surprised. They walked temple grounds together, shoes off, shoulders brushing. Krit learned how Aru took his coffee. Aru learned how Krit paused before speaking, choosing kindness every time. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Krit reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Arun's ear, slow, careful, giving Aru time to pull away. Aru didn't. That night, when they kissed again, it lasted longer. Krit's lips lingered, respectful but wanting. Aru felt held, not consumed, and that was what made it comforting. But even then, in the quiet after, Aru sometimes felt. Still, Krit smiled easy, charming, safe. He asked questions and waited for answers. He listened when Aru spoke about doubt, about feeling like he was never quite enough. You don't need to be more, Krit said once, brushing his fingers against Arun's hand, light and respectful. You already are. That was how it began. They spent evenings talking, sitting close, Krit's shoulder always there when Aru leaned without thinking. It wasn't fire, but it was peace, and Aru, tired of storms, chose peace. Or so he thought. Their first meeting wasn't gentle. It was a collision. Aru turned to fast in a crowded Bangkok corridor, and suddenly he was pressed against a wall, Phayu's body shielding him from the rush of people, one arm braced beside his head. For a second, neither of them moved. Phayu smelled like rain and something darker. His gaze dragged slowly over Arun's face, not hungry, but assessing. When his eyes locked onto Arun's, the air shifted. Sorry, Aru breathed. Phayu didn't step back immediately. Don't be, he said. His voice was low, deliberate. You weren't the one not looking. When he finally moved away, the absence felt louder than the contact. Aru stood there, pulse racing, heart confused. That wasn't supposed to feel like that. Phayu entered Arun's life like heat against skin. Phayu. He was tall in a different way than Krit, sharper, darker, his presence heavy without trying. His black shirt clung to his frame, sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal a black cross tattoo along his arm. It wasn't flashy, it felt intentional. Phayu's eyes lingered on Aru a second too long. Not admiration, recognition. You look like someone who thinks too much, Phayu said quietly. Aru laughed it off, but the words stayed with him. They kept meeting, accidentally, inevitably. They met again 2 days later. Then again, always unexpected. Always charged at a late-night food stall. At a quiet corner of a bookstore, once in an elevator that stopped between floors, trapping them in a silence thick enough to touch. Phayu never crowded him, but he stood close enough that Arun felt him everywhere. When Phayu spoke, his mouth was near Arun's ear. When their hands brushed, neither apologized. Each meeting ended unfinished. Arun would return home unsettled, Krit's messages grounding him, but something inside Arun was already leaning forward, toward danger. Phayu never tried to impress him. He stood close when he spoke. He noticed when Arun hesitated, when his smile dimmed. One night, under dim lighting and quiet music, Phayu said, "You chose someone safe." Arun stiffened. "How do you? It's obvious." Phayu continued, "You're holding yourself back." That was the warning. Arun should have listened. The pull between them was undeniable, charged, dangerous, alive. The pull wasn't loud. It was constant. Arun noticed how his body reacted before his mind could catch up, how his breath changed when Phayu entered a room, how his skin warmed when Phayu's gaze lingered. Phayu felt it too. He resisted longer than Arun realized. He held back touches, ended conversations early, created distance that only made the tension sharper. One night, standing across from each other under dim light, Phayu finally exhaled. "This is getting dangerous," he said. Arun swallowed. For who? Phayu stepped closer. For both of us, the space between them disappeared, not rushed, not desperate, but inevitable. And when they finally kissed, it felt like something that had been happening long before their lips ever met. When Phayu touched him for the first time, it wasn't sudden. His fingers brushed Arun's knuckles while passing him a drink. A deliberate pause, heat spreading from skin to chest. Their first kiss wasn't rushed. It started with closeness, breath mingling, noses brushing, Phayu's hands settling at the small of Arun's back. When their lips met, it was deep and unhurried, mouths fitting together like they had been waiting. Arun gasped softly. Phayu kissed him again slower, firmer, one hand sliding up to Arun's jaw, thumb pressing gently beneath his lip. Arun responded instinctively, fingers curling into Phayu's shirt, pulling him closer. Bodies aligned, heartbeats loud. They broke apart only to rest their foreheads together, breath uneven. "You should go," Phayu whispered. Arun didn't. Inside the room, the world narrowed. Phayu's shirt came off first, revealing warm skin, and the cross tattoos stretched as he moved. Arun's followed Phayu's hand, sliding it over his shoulders with reverence, not haste. Kisses traced slowly jaw, neck, shoulder. Phayu pressed his lips against Arun's collarbone, then lower, lingering. Arun's breath hitched as Phayu kissed along his chest, across his stomach, stopping just above the waistband, never crossing the line, but making Arun tremble anyway. Hands explored backs, shoulders, hips. Arun straddled Phayu's lap, foreheads touching again, lips brushing in soft, desperate kisses that spoke of wanting more and choosing restraint. When they lay back together, skin to skin, bodies close, the lights dimmed and the moment faded into quiet breathing and tangled limbs. What happened after was theirs alone. Krit felt the change before Arun confessed. When Arun finally spoke, his voice broke. Krit listened without interrupting, eyes soft with understanding and hurt. "I wanted to be enough for you," Krit said, pressing a final kiss to Arun's lips, gentle, lingering. But love shouldn't feel like hiding. They held each other, then let go. At dawn, Arun found Phayu waiting. The city was quiet, honest. Phayu didn't speak. He only opened his arms. Arun stepped into them. Their final kiss was everything the first had promised, deep, sure, unafraid. Arun smiled into it, hands resting over Phayu's heart. "I choose this," Arun whispered. Phayu kissed him again, slow and certain. Not safe, but real. Please like, share, and subscribe.